Family Guy is all about killing characters for laughs and then pretending it never happened. But sometimes they go all in and you're left wondering, wait, was that for real? Let's start with Adam West High.
Wait, Uncle Adam is dead? Eesh, how many people has this show killed?
Your grandpa's Batman wasn't just Quahog's mayor, he was its most delightfully bizarre resident. After Mr. West's real-life passing, Seth and the rest of the Family Guy crew gave him, well, a bizarre and delightful send-off. As the family sits at dinner and discusses news of Adam's passing, Brian suggests renaming James Woods High School to honor Mayor West. A noble idea, sure, but Principal Shepard's gambling problem almost steals the spotlight.
Yes, to Adam West High.
Well, you're a talking dog. You probably know what you're doing.
Of course, it's Brian who ends up running for mayor himself. Well, after Carol, Mayor West's widow, insists she sees a lot of Adam in him.
You know, I see a lot of him in you.
Oh no, are we gonna kiss? We're gonna kiss, aren't we?
And by a lot of Adam, she apparently means an opportunity for Brian to embarrass himself on a much bigger stage. Brian decides to run for mayor, and in the beginning, he's unopposed. Quagmire, who feels Quahog would become the laughingstock of the nation if they get a dog for a mayor, so he runs for mayor too, out of sheer spite. This rivalry leads to some of the funniest chaos in the episode, including Quagmire convincing Brian to skip wearing a tie to the debate, only to show up in one himself.
That son of a...
Their feud escalates to a full-blown bus crash with Brian hitting the driver in the head and causing the bus to crash. And the two are left dangling off a cliff while hilariously passive-aggressive bickering ensues. They try calling OnStar roadside assistance, but even that doesn't help.
Yes, our bus went over a cliff. We need help.
Glenn? Is this Glenn Quagmire?
Yes, sweetheart. Hi, who's this?
It's Melissa from the Ramada Inn.
Oh yeah, we're gonna die.
They try waking up the bus driver, they end up killing him instead. They then eat some edible panties, which have been worn by Quagmire, and finally, they try reconciling, which goes as well as you'd think it will. Brian revealed that he wanted to be mayor mostly because once Adam West told him he went to 65 pancake breakfasts a year, and I mean, come on, I'd kill for a pancake breakfast now, let alone run for mayor. Brian decides he can't die with Quagmire, tries to climb up to get help, and fails miserably, sentencing them both to certain death. Oh, and Quagmire ends up with a gentleman's dildo hitting him in the throat. It's a casual day for Quagmire. Just when it seems like all hope is lost, the ghost of Mayor Adam West saves the day. In a beautifully strange moment, Brian imagines Mayor West reaching out to grab him, only to realize he's clinging to a branch. The episode wraps up with a touching tribute to the late Adam West, complete with a montage of his best moments. But true to Family Guy form, it ends with a fourth wall-breaking joke encouraging viewers to vote for the next mayor online.
Who do you think should be the next mayor of Quahog? Register your votes at fox.com/familyguy.
Your votes don't count. It's a trick. They're just tracking your data.
Rest in peace, Adam West. You were one of Quahog's finest. And weirdest. Okay, now that I've depressed you enough, here's something more lighthearted. Old Stewie killing his entire family. In the far-off future, Stewie Griffin has finally made it big. He's rich, famous, and living the dream in California with a shape-shifting valet by his side. Life couldn't be better until Brian shows up to ruin it all with some grim news. Peter is dying. Stewie is reluctant to accept the news, but Peter's Google history confirms it.
Oh, cancer symptoms. Yeah, coughing up blood, pain in abdomen, Winnie the Pooh casket. Yeah, he is sick.
Reluctantly, Stewie heads back to Quahog, picking up Chris and Meg along the way. And let's just say the years have been weird for the Griffin siblings. Chris has become a teacher of sorts.
I kinda wasted my life, except I obsessed over teaching my penis how to talk.
Well, I said of sorts, and Meg has been used as a live dummy for testing bulletproof vests. Hey, she's still alive, which is good. When they finally arrive at the family home, Stewie is horrified. The house is in complete shambles, and seeing Peter on his supposed deathbed doesn't make things any easier. Peter manages to guilt Stewie into a promise to take care of the family, and in a rare show of sentiment, Stewie rebuilds the house and prepares to share his fortune. But you know this show. You know there's a twist coming. Well, just as Stewie is handing out cigars to honor Peter's final moments because he wants to celebrate his life, Peter makes a miraculous recovery and reveals it was all a scam to get Stewie to pay for the renovations.
Great work tricking him, Brian.
Thanks. Well, I credit my years as a writer. When I planned the con, I saw Quahog as a character.
Okay, that's enough.
But the twist also has a twist. In a Kaiser Soze-style walk-off, it's revealed that Stewie knew about the scam all along. He exited the home knowing all too well that his family was laughing at him. But now before turning on the gas in the kitchen and rigging the house to explode. As Chris lights a cigar, the whole house blows up, taking the entire family with it, except for Stewie, who calmly watches from a safe distance.
Stewie, help! It hurts! Reverse the pill! Let me die!
Ooh, I wish I could, but the pills were in the house, so yeah.
Stewie!
But wait, it's all in Stewie's head. It turns out he's been standing up in a costume shop, staring at an old man Halloween costume and imagining the worst case scenario of growing old.
What the hell is wrong with you? You've been staring at that old man Halloween costume for 30 minutes.
21 plus commercials, but it's a big decision.
So it wasn't cancer that got Peter and the rest of the Griffins, but Stewie. Now, enough with the future, let's go back to past and reminisce about the time Peter got killed by a Vietnamese ladyboy. Peter Griffin has been killed in Family Guy more times than Homer Simpson could count on his fingers. You know, because the Simpsons only have 8 fingers on both hands, and Peter, yeah, he's been killed at least a dozen times. Ugh, come on, you get it, you get it. In this episode, we're looking at an alternative reality in which Family Guy has been the longest running show on television of all time, followed closely by The Simpsons, who came way after the original Family Guy. If there are unlimited amounts of universes out there, there has to be one where Family Guy is more successful than The Simpsons. Come on now. Anyway, in this episode, we have 3 segments. In the first, show is reimagined as a 50s sitcom where everyone, includes the kids, smoke cigarettes. In the second one, we have a Brady Bunch-like 60s comedy in which Chris runs away from home to attend Woodstock. But we're focusing on the third segment, which features Peter as a stereotypical blue-collar dad encouraging Chris to enlist in the Vietnam War. It's a satirical take on the era's grittier, more grounded family sitcoms. But since there aren't many deaths in the first 2 segments, let's skip ahead to the part where Peter bites the dust. The chaos begins when Peter decides to send Chris to Vietnam.
Chris, I see in the paper that Vietnam is still going on, and as a blue-collar TV dad, I demand you enlist.
To encourage Chris to join the army, the family goes to welcome Quagmire back as he lands from Vietnam, where the Griffins proceed to spit on him and call him a baby murderer.
Oh, I left my carry-on back on the plane.
All right, when he comes back, we gotta make him feel welcome again.
Quagmire reunites with his friends back in Quahog to visit the Clam, which is now a Studio 54-style club. This is where Peter changes his mind about sending Chris off to fight the good fight when he hears what Quagmire went through during war. He finds out that all throughout the tour, Quagmire was forced to listen to Fortunate Son.
My penis would even play Fortunate Son while I was visiting a whorehouse.
Of course, this throws Peter into a frenzy, and he realizes that he must stop Chris from going to the Nam next morning. His plan? To go instead of his son, which is a noble cause. But we all know Peter's never been that unselfish. In a finally taken straight from hair, Peter realizes he made a huge mistake. So instead of singing Let the Sun Shine In, he busts out his own rendition.
Let my son die. Let my son die. My son, not me.
While we don't actually see Peter die in Nam, we see his family lament over his grave, only to find out he died like a hero, getting stabbed by a Vietnamese ladyboy. Speaking of armies in foreign countries, let's not forget that time when Meg was shot and replaced by a Russian sleeper agent. Most people know how Meg's original voice actress, Lacey Chabert, only played her in the first season due to commitment to another show. Since season 2, Family Guy creators hired Mila Kunis, who's been voicing our beloved punching bag for nearly a quarter of a century. But only the real fans know that Meg herself has been killed and replaced by a Russian spy in season 15. Yes, really. The episode, A House Full of Peters, starts off as your typical Family Guy chaos. Lois prank calls Peter saying she's his long-lost daughter, which freaks out Peter because it turns out he needed cash for dial-up modem classes in college. So Peter and Lois decide to let the sperm clinic give out Peter's information so if he has any kids out there, they can get in touch with him. Sure enough, his past as a sperm donor comes back to haunt him when dozens of his offspring from all over the world show up at the Griffins' doorstep.
We're all your children. We came from your semen. Semen?
The middle part of the story is filled with antics, Peter and his kids farting in unison, Stewie listening to Bavarian Peter playing harmonica, and Chris awkwardly fending off advances from one of Peter's lookalike kids. A good part of the episode is dedicated to Lois nearly falling for Larry, one of Peter's kids who looks like a younger version of him. The two stroll by the shore, enjoying each other's company and ice cream? Though usually eating out of the palm of someone's hand means total devotion, this feels more like Larry just literally enjoying a snack. Either way, it's clear Larry's appetite for Lois goes way beyond dessert. The two even end up kissing, which is not normal. Definitely not normal. Peter ends up catching Larry trying to take Lois's bra off with his teeth. As I said earlier, just roll with it and the whole situation gets stickier than a pancake eating contest at a maple syrup factory during a heat wave. The two end up fighting it out with the rest of Peter's kids watching, and eventually we end things on Peter learning some very questionable lessons about keeping his sperm in check.
From now on, I'm making sure my sperm stays right where it belongs. In the bathroom sink.
But let's skip past the sperm donor madness and go back to the part where this episode takes an unexpected dark turn. In a completely out-of-nowhere moment, Meg encounters someone who looks exactly like her.
Wow, you look exactly like me.
At first it seems like a weird coincidence, but then the lookalike reveals she's a Russian clone sent to take Meg's place.
Yes, I'm not actually part of sperm donation thing. I'm your secret clone. We have been orphan blacked. and you soon will be dead.
And while Russian Meg isn't bluffing, a sniper's red dot suddenly appears on Meg's forehead, and with a silenced gunshot, the real Meg is killed. Russian Meg calmly drags the body into a bush, steals her hat, and flawlessly impersonates her, slipping back into the family without anyone noticing. It's an absolutely wild twist that feels like something straight out of a spy thriller. But in true Family Guy fashion, the show never mentions it again, leaving fans to wonder, was this really the end of the real Meg? And more importantly, is the Meg we've been watching since season 15 actually a Russian agent? One thing's for sure, this isn't the first time Meg has been treated horribly, but it might be the last time she had any idea what was going on. Hey, I remember when I had no idea what was going on when Family Guy writer seemingly killed Brian for good. Hey, remember that time Family Guy killed off Brian? Not in a random cutaway gag, but in a full-on heartbreaking storyline? Yeah, it happened in Life of Brian, and it still hurts. The episode kicks off with Stewie and Brian fleeing from a band of hostile Native Americans in a Jeep. Why? Because naturally, Stewie had given guns to the Native Americans during a past trip to Jamestown, allowing them to wipe out the Europeans and take over America. When Stewie's return pad is destroyed by bullets, the two visit an alternate timeline of themselves to borrow another time machine and fix the timeline. Once they return, Stewie decides he's had enough of their dangerous time-traveling adventures and destroys his time machine at the junkyard. And here's where things take a tragic turn. While at the junkyard, Stewie and Brian stumble upon a street hockey net and decide to bring it home. But while setting it up, Brian is struck by a speeding car and left critically injured.
Brian, look out!
The Griffins rush Brian to the vet, but his injuries are too severe. In a gut-wrenching scene, Brian says his final goodbyes, thanking the family for the wonderful life they gave him.
You've given me a wonderful life. I love you all.
After Brian's death, Stewie is consumed by guilt. He blames himself and the destruction of the time machine for being unable to save his best friend. In desperation, Stewie tries to rebuild the machine, but his dealer can't supply the parts. His connection was killed for unknowingly drawing Muhammad.
Oh, dear Rupert. Without those capacitors, it'll be completely impossible to build a functioning time machine. I guess that means Brian is really gone for good.
Stewie's left with no way to bring Brian back. The family holds a funeral for Brian, with Peter delivering a tearful eulogy.
The truth is, Brian wasn't just my dog. He was my best friend in the whole world. I'm gonna spend the rest of my life missing him.
A month passes, and the Griffins are still grieving. Lois suggests they adopt a new dog to help fill the void, and Peter brings home Vinny, a smooth-talking Italian pup who quickly charms everyone but Stewie. At first, Stewie tries to sabotage Vinny, but when Winnie explains that he lost his owner a few months ago, he was feeling devastated.
Well, how did he die?
He tried to go to a yoga class, and on the first pose, his ball sack split in half.
That's until he met the Griffins, saw that they were going through the same thing, and figured out they can help each other get over it. That night, Vinny sleeps beside Stewie's bed, a bittersweet reminder that life must go on, even without Brian. While Brian's death was devastating, it wasn't permanent. Just 2 episodes later in Christmas Guys, Stewie finds a time-traveling version of himself at a toy store and uses the opportunity to bring Brian back. Still, this brief absence showed just how much fans of the Griffins loved their favorite talking dog. Whether it's Brian getting flattened by a car, or Meg being replaced by a Russian clone, Family Guy proves that nobody is ever safe, not even the main cast. Want more chaos? Check out our video on the 7 deadly sins as Family Guy characters to see which Griffins embody gluttony, greed, and more.